The New York Giants lose another game. What went wrong this time? Stick around. We're going to talk about it coming up next.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the LockedOn Giants podcast, part of the LockedOn Podcast family, your team every day. Patricia Traina here with you. And thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day, or if you're watching on YouTube, where, by the way, we're about 8 subscribers away from the magic number of 1,000. So thank you, everybody who's jumped on board. Thank you for making us your first watch of the day. And unfortunately, folks, we have another Giants embarrassing loss to talk about. This one to the Los Angeles Chargers, 37-21. The score not as close as it indicates. I think the Giants with 14 points in garbage time. But here to help me break it all down is David Turner. And David Turner, of course, is going to hopefully talk me off the ledge and talk a lot of you off the ledge, which is a lot to ask for. But
you got the wrong co-host for that.
David, let's start with the overall, approach here. I mean, what did you think of this game plan coming in by Freddie Kitchens? I mean, I thought they would feature Saquon a little bit more than they did. Saquon had, 16 carries. I know you've been a proponent of getting him like 20 to 25. 64 yards, along of 13. I know the run blocking wasn't great, but, just overall, what were your thoughts about this game plan?
Well, I mean, as far as Freddie Kitchens goes, y'all know I'm not a fan of him. Mm-hmm. So I don't see much game plan. I see play calling, and that's a different thing. Like a lot of people, and I shouldn't say this, at the NFL level, a lot of people cannot call plays and have any success, okay? It's very difficult. In college football, I believe there's good play callers. They know they can recognize defense, they can call plays, and there's effectiveness in their play calling. And that, to me, is what Freddie Kitchens is really good at, all right? In the NFL, you have to build on plays. Like you said, you have to have a game plan. They can't just be like, well, I'm going to run the ball. How are you going to run the ball? How are you going to attack it? What's going to build on what and this and that? Freddie Kitchens came out play action passing more than I would have anticipated because he didn't establish the run. And it's not like this run game is a beast where people are just overly prepared for the run game. And then, you can come out play action pass because they're loading the box and stopping the run and have success with it. I mean, Shepard didn't even have his first catch till the third quarter. I think 4 minutes into the third quarter. And I don't even know if he was targeted before that. So, let's be honest here. I didn't see much of a game plan on offense. The defensive game plan, well, it's what it's been all year. Bend, don't break, get to the red zone and try to, stop them there. Not a lot of success with it today, giving up 37 points. But there was some decision-making on offense and by Joe Judge on special teams that backed that defense up into some bad positions as well that I'm sure we'll get into when we get through it all. So, all in all, Mike Glennon is Mike Glennon. He's awful. He did throw for 191 today and had 17 completions, and God bless the receivers. They worked for every one of those. Often missing, again, back behind the receivers or high, making receivers work to catch and, secure the ball, which is very hard for receivers to continually do. It's like being a catcher in a baseball. If you don't know where the ball's coming, I mean, there's a lot of them are going to go hit the backstop because you just don't know where it's going. These guys throw so hard, you're not sure which way it's going to come out. And these receivers don't have any consistency at that quarterback throw right now. So it's very, very hard on them. And with Saquon, I mean, yeah, he ran the ball 16 times. I thought they would, and Booker ran the ball, 8 times. Both of them being effective. I thought they would just, pound the rock a little bit better in the first half, keep the defense fresh and let them, compete with the Chargers in the second half. but the time of possession really wore out that defense because, I mean, they were on the field, I want to say 3/4 of the game. I'm sure you got the stats there on time of possession, but they were on the field for most of the game, it seemed like, every time I turned on. And partially that's because the offense couldn't stay on the field, but also partially that's the way the defense is being called. So
34 minutes and 20 seconds to be exact. So that was a lot. They were, to use a Dave quote, their tongues were dragging on by the end of that game. But sticking with the offense, I got to ask you about this because, the coaches talked about getting Kenny Golladay more involved. Now, I went back and I just looked up his numbers. This week, he was 8 targets, 2 receptions, 15 yards. All together over the last 3 weeks, 20 targets, 8 receptions. That ain't number one production type. What's going on with Kenny Golladay that you can see? Is it the routes that they're asking him to run? Is it him? What's going on there that he hasn't been more effective?
For me, it's the routes that are being run. They're not, again, when you have Daniel Jones in there, to me, you have to have more of a vertical concept route tree and route combinations, I should say, when you're using Daniel Jones, and most of them should be in between the numbers. We don't see that. And then Golladay, when Freddie's been calling the plays the last couple of weeks, it's hard to kind of get after him because, again, Glennon's been throwing and he's been missing so much that it's hard to say, it's Golladay because, Glennon is just so bad. And I'm not trying to rescue Golladay here or Freddie, but Glennon, I kind of think, limits a lot of what you can call and what you can do because he's just not able to. I mean, even when he ran in that late touchdown, did you see what a Sally he was? I mean, the commentators, I don't even know who it was. The commentators on TV were just ripping him for being such a sissy, going in there, not trying to get the touchdown. It was protecting himself. And if I get the touchdown, good. But if not, whatever. It's like you don't have that, like I've said for weeks, you don't have that fight, that hunger, that want to win on this, on this field at all moments and all times. Let's go do this. And honestly, that run by Glennon at the end there kind of showed it. But with Golladay, back to your question, I don't know if it's him or this offense. I think it's more the offense. Even when Jason Garrett was here, they didn't call plays for him. They didn't target him. And I with the limitation of Glennon, I don't see Freddie doing much of it either.
And of course, we still don't know what's going to happen with Daniel Jones. The latest update on Daniel is he will have another MRI, I believe, on Monday. Head coach Joe Judge was asked about that, and he said he was under the impression that Daniel was going to fly back to New York on Sunday night, which is when we're recording this, by the way. He would have another MRI on Monday, and they would see where he was at regarding that neck. So who knows if he's going to be back or not. You look at him and he can move fine. He can throw the ball fine. I guess, it's just there's concern about him taking a hit there. So, it's just staying on the quarterback question here for a second, David. A lot of fans want to see Jake Fromm, who at this point I think has had about 6 practices, full practices with the team and, however many meetings. At next week, if Daniel Jones can't go, would you at this point start Fromm against the Dallas Cowboys in that defense, or would you stick with Glennon, or, what do you do?
I think we're going to see both of them no matter what, because Micah Parsons is hunting out there. He's hunting. So, I don't care who starts. I don't think that same quarterback's going to finish. So, I mean, I'm
the guy you wanted, by the way.
You remember that? Yeah.
Of course. I wanted Rashawn Slater, who played, by the way, pretty good for the Chargers. So,
no, he did, but for me, Parsons would have made this defense even better. And if they could have got Ojulari like they did in the second round and Parsons in the first, now your pass rush would have just been ridiculous for years to come with those two young bucks, stacking the edges and Roman free. It's just it's silly. But again, Dave got a king's ransom for his pick. But he's going to have to face Parsons now, or the Giants are going to have to face Parsons now twice a year for many, many years to come. So that was the hard part for me to pass up when I know my divisional opponent was eyeballing him, to give him that weapon. That's hard because Mike is a kid who really is a game changer. He's going to be rookie defensive, player of the year and everything. I mean, he's just outstanding. So.
Hey, Giant fans, we have more coming up on today's show. But first, I want to tell you about a simple way to get all the entertainment you love without the hassle. DirecTV Stream brings you your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, which means you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. And the best part is there's no annual contract and there's no need to buy multiple devices. So stop waiting and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. All right, let's switch to, we talked a little bit about the coaching. I want to stay on that for a second, the conservatism. And Joe Judge in his post-game presser, it wasn't all roses and sunshine as it was last week, but that said, he commented about how he didn't see guys quit. I mean, I don't know. I thought towards the end there, some guys were quitting, they were just kind of mailing things in. What did you see when you watched it?
When you watched the crossing route, who was it? Guyton. I think it was Guyton ran a crossing route against Bradbury, caught the ball and turned it upfield. And then right at the end, when Bradbury could tell somebody else was going to make the tackle, he just let up, and I'm not saying that to bag on Bradbury, but, if you're a team full of, people that are fighting till the end and gonna, be there and you keep, Bradbury would have finished that playoff. So, I don't see a team, like I've told you for weeks now, lining up ready to, go after it and make a difference. I see a defensive line in front that are trying their ass off, but the way this defense is being called, where it's bend, don't break, they're just taking way too many reps. And, then when they get into the red zone, it's time to, kind of suck it up, buttercup, and get after it. They're tired. It's already been a 10 or 12 play drive. And then they have to go to work in the red zone. It's hard. And I'll be honest with you, I think you would have got really sick if what's the running back? Eckler didn't get hurt. Eckler was on pace in the first half to have a really insane game. I mean, he ended up with 67 yards and a touchdown, and I think he had a couple of receptions too. And if that kid was around in the second half when this defense was, tongues out hanging, it would have been a different ball game even than it was.
And to your point, I'm looking at the drive chart here. The Chargers had 3 of their drives. They had 11 drives total. 3 of them were double digits. And in the second half alone, they had 2 of their first 3 drives went for 10 plays and 11 plays. So yeah, if that defense looked gassed at the end of towards the end of the game, there's your reason why. And that to me is surprising. Now, you've been mentioning, the way the defense has been called and how, it's the bend but don't break. So if you were calling it, how would you structure it?
You already know we're in zero coverage and we're coming. Dogs are off, leashes are off. They're coming hunting. We're living and dying by the sword. It's the way it goes, because I'm not one to sit back and do anything in life that way. It's just not. It's not in my DNA. Once you get to play 6 on a chart, if you're at play 6 and it's like 3rd and 5, we're coming. There's going to be a double A gap mug. We're going to, come from the corner. We're bringing extra. We're going to get to your quarterback. Everybody's going to know it. And it's going to be, can you figure out who's coming and get the ball out of your hand fast enough? So identify it and get the ball out fast enough before my guy hits your quarterback, because you're not going to be able to block him up. And that's what I would do, because, once you get to play 6, 7, and 8, your defense is tired. Your rotation is in. You got to get off the field. That is too much time on the field for your defense. I know I'm realistic. Not everything's going to be 3 and out. Like, I get it. Those are rare defenses where you're a constant 3 and out. But if you can't get off the field with 8 between play 6 and 9, either with a field goal try or off the field with a punt, you got to start blitzing. You got to bring more.
Yeah. And, they lost Leonard Williams to, excuse me, an elbow injury. And I'm just taking a look at the stats here real quick. Two, let me see. Yeah. 2 sacks. Let's see. They had Dexter Lawrence had one. Ojulari had one. Let me see. They only had 4 tackles for a loss, 6 quarterback hits, no interceptions. This is the second straight game they didn't have any takeaways, and only 1 pass defense. That passing defense was, to put it in a word.
Nice word. English degree coming to you, sir. But that being said, remember on Michael Strahan Day, we talked about that defense, rolling up coverage, playing zero, being more aggressive and blitzing. I don't know why they got away from that. I really don't. Like, that looked like a Giants defense. Was it 2 or 3 games ago? Like, we came on here and we were all excited about how that defense finally was, rolling up coverage. But today, I mean, they were off coverage, giving up those 3, 5, 7-yard freaking pass plays, like just super easy outs and things. And I'm just like, what are you doing? And then once that started happening, then they started running, San Diego started running the crossing routes. And it looked like the old school, New Orleans Saints offense, because that's where they got it from, right? And it was just like, oh, man, sit that backside zone and let them play robber. But no, you're not. You're making now you're sitting here making Bradbury run across the field. I mean, it's a rare trait for any corner in the NFL to be able to cover a guy like Guyton, who's a 4.39 speed across the field. You got to have that front. You got to have that robber on the front side as the crossing routes coming across, just to help him to negate the throw. Or if the throw happens across the middle, you got an extra guy that he's going to run into to tackle. But when you're on the backside and you have that, it's like, man, that's just stupidity. That's just stupidity. And I know I've been doing this a long time, so maybe the listeners are like, what's he talking about? And but I'm telling y'all, like, you can't have corners. I don't care if it's Revis or not. When their crossing routes are coming like that, it's super hard to cover across field when a guy's running away from you. In that moment, it's a rare trait. Guys like Deion Sanders can do it. Revis can do it on certain guys, but when you have a guy like Guyton who's a 4.3 doing it, it's hard as heck. You got to play better zone on that one. And we just didn't see it today. We didn't see it at all. And I don't see disruption at the line of scrimmage with press coverage and working their 2-man and different things in there. It's just not prevalent. And I don't like, I've said it for weeks, I don't like this bend don't break defense. The one time I thought we saw real Giant defense was that Michael Strahan Day game that we had a few weeks ago. That to me was Giant defense.
Well, they had to, because Michael was there. I mean, they weren't going to let Michael down, but
they let Eli down. They let a huge egg when Eli was
I know.
There.
Oh gosh,
so,
yes.
I mean, shoot, the gap tooth could take one for the team too. I don't care. But yeah, I like I said, that's the only game this whole season I saw Giant defense was that game.
Yeah. Something I don't ask you about on a weekly basis, but I got to bring it up because this has been a problem that hasn't been talked about a lot. And that's special teams, particularly the punting, which is driving me crazy because Riley Dixon has not been good now for, I want to say, 2 years. And, I don't know. It just seems like ever since Joe came to the Giants, I mean, before he was here, Thomas McGay, he had that unit, pretty much a well-oiled machine. And I'm not saying Joe's influence has made it worse. Maybe it's just coincidental, but Riley Dixon has been awful. I mean, you got a couple guys who stand out. Cam Brown is pretty good. Keon Cross has been pretty good. But for the most part, those units are just, again, to use the word I used before.
It's a good word. You get a lot of use out of it tonight. For me, special teams in the NFL has been completely neutered. So, it's a situation where, every kickoff's in the end zone and they're, starting the ball. I don't know why like up in the CFL when I worked up there, the offense could just take the choice, either get a kickoff or take the ball to 25. We should just do that now because the actual kick and then touchback is ridiculous. Like it's just an extra timeout for the TV to run another commercial. That's all it is. Because you notice after they play, they get done with the scoring, the extra point, they do a commercial, they come back for the kickoff, they go to another commercial, and it's just like, okay, so it's an extra commercial break. How about you just have the offense start at the 25 and let's go? Like, get rid of kickoffs at this point because you're completely neutering it. It doesn't matter anymore. And as far as punting goes, punting is a skill. It's a skill. I learned that when I worked with Shane Leckler, and I mean that man can get that ball to turn over and do things. It was crazy. It was really insane watching him punt in practice and all the practices he would do. But with Joe coming over, I had hopes that there'd be some trickerations that were fun to watch. There would be some, like maybe 4 or 5 times a year, you'd be like, "Ooh, that was cool." Look at that. Wow, where did he draw that one up? But we haven't seen any of that. It's just been vanilla, and it is what it is. It's nothing exciting. And today when they threw that pass, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, seriously. I've been saying that since JG called like plays. I was like, stop with all the trickeration crap. Like, seriously, like at this point, you just need to line up and play football. And when they threw that pass on special teams, I can't remember. Help me out here. It was a 4th and 3, if I remember correctly.
I think so.
And I'm like, dude, on a 4th and 3, and you got Shepard, you got Golladay, you got Ingram, you have Rudolph, you have Barkley, you have Booker. You have your horses. The only one that didn't play today, if I remember, is Tony. So you have your accoutrement of players on a 4th and 3, run a freaking rub route slant and get the 3 yards. Like, get your best goal line pass route and let's go. Or flip the ball to, Shaq or to Barkley and tell him to go, go get it on a wide zone stretch or something, or Booker. Put Booker and Barkley in the backfield together and make them guess what's going to go on. Like, there's so much they can do and they don't do it. And I'm confused to why. And then they go to the punter throwing the ball. It's just like when Tony was in the game, they'd have Tony start throwing the ball. And I'm like, why? Tony is more dangerous running the damn route. He's more dangerous with the ball in his hand than throwing. Like, why don't you just get him in space and let that jitterbug create and go? I don't get why we're doing all this, and then on offense, we go double reverse pass into a screen. Like, they weren't setting up a down the field shot. It was a double reverse to a screen. What? Like, if you fake the players out to go on the first reverse, they're sitting there. And that's exactly what we saw. They did a great job selling the first reverse. Players were sitting over on that side of the defense. And then they give the ball back to the quarterback, and he's supposed to throw a screen where they faked everybody to run to. Made no sense. No sense at all. So that's the kind of play calling that when it happens, I'm like, damn it, Freddie. Like, what are you doing?
Well, you don't know if that's Freddie or Joe. Could be Joe.
No. I'm not talking about the punting pass. That was Joe. I'm talking about the offensive double reverse to a screen pass. That was Freddie.
Which Joe probably signed off on, but nonetheless. Head scratcher.
Like I told you, again, I'm aggressive. I would just be like, hey, quarterback runs, all these cheesy plays like this are done. Like, we're not doing them. If you can't win a game without that, with the personnel we have, what are we doing? And did you see Cream Puff get thrown out of the game quick? Cream Puff didn't play that much.
I think it wasn't. I don't know if Solder was injured or not, but he didn't play well either. Look, if we're gonna rag on Matt Pear, you got
hold on, wait a minute, timeout. The Cream Puff started the game, and he blew like 3 assignments.
He didn't start the game. Solder started it.
Are you sure? Because
I'm positive. I'll double check here. Let me see.
Because I thought he started the game and blew like 3 assignments.
Nope. Solder started it. When he did, he had a couple of series, and he was like a turnstile, And,
they both were.
And Pear, I know whiffed on one run because I remember cringing when he just, the guy ran by him and blew up Saquon in the backfield. And then they put Solder back in there, and Solder was still like a turnstile. So, that offensive line, look, we know the deal with that offensive line. It's I would say 4/5 of those guys are not going to be back next year. The only ones worth keeping is Andrew Thomas. And Andrew Thomas, by the way, tweaked his ankle, the right ankle, which is the one that landed him on IR. So that's something to watch this coming week. God help us all. So, but anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Again, game planning, Patriots, Monday night, terrible weather, 6 offensive line on 70% or 80% of the snaps, and they threw like freaking 6 passes. Win the game. Giants, use 6 offensive linemen. Why? There's no need. Why not? Just let the quarterback get pounded the whole damn game. It's not working. Hasn't been worked. You don't keep tight ends in. It's always just block with 5, which if I was Dave, I literally would be losing my ever-loving mind on the coaches. I would. The halls would echo with my voice if I was Dave. Like they just would. And if people didn't care, I wouldn't care because people are on the street asking for my job and you're calling 5-man protections. You're calling 5-man protections, and we've been proving for freaking 13 games we can't do it. And they're calling for my job because you're calling 5-man protections.
Well, I mean, to be fair, the coaches could turn around and be screaming at Dave for not giving them, for not making sure he had a stacked up offensive line. So, I mean, it works
absolutely.
Both ways.
And I'm not gonna save him on that one. But at the same time, when you're in the middle of a surgery, if you nick an artery, guess what you do? You have to fix it. You sew it up. You're the surgeon. Sew it up, and then continue on the rest of the surgery and keep it moving. That's when you're in the season, you're in the middle of a surgery. You can't just stop and say, oh, I don't have the right tools. You got to finish. You got to figure a way through this. So again, for me, if you're a coach and you're in the NFL and you're the best in the business, you need to figure it out. And a lot of coaches in this business do figure it out. That's why they're winning. Personnel is not going to be perfect at all. You're going to make time. You just can't pay them all. You can't pay them all. And I've told you week after week, the one thing Dave did not do and that staff did not do is prepare this. Since the draft, I've said it. They've not prepared this offensive line, right? The offensive line is a 1 weak spot. So knowing that, run your 6 offensive linemen in, use them in rundowns, open some holes for the explosive backs you have, and get some positive yards on first down. Take them out on second and third down, but keep a tight end in or keep a back in. Like you have a lot of weapons at the skill positions to keep people on their toes if you game plan it right. And that's all I'm saying. Like, I'm not saying keep the 6-man in at all times, but on first down, check them in. Hey, let's go. Check them in. Let's run the ball. Barkley, Penny, 6 offensive linemen. We're going to get 4 yards right here. And I'm going to put my quarterback in a 2nd and 6, hopefully into a 3rd and 2. And now we're going to pick it up. The Patriots did that the entire game and did not break character. They knew who they were. They knew what they needed. They did it the entire game. And they won that game. That's coaching.
All right, Giant fans, we have more still to come on today's show. But first, it's the most wonderful time of the year as college football gears up for its bowl season. The NFL playoff race is taking shape, and the NBA and NHL seasons are in full swing. And no matter what sport you follow, BetOnline has you covered all holiday season long with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. Head on over to their new and updated desktop and mobile website at betonline.ag and sign up today. Use the special promo code LOCKEDON and you will get a 50% welcome bonus. Don't wait to take advantage of all the special offers that they have. Sign up today, use our special promo code Locked On, and get your 50% welcome bonus at betonline.ag. All right, Giant fans, more coming up on today's Locked On Giants podcast. But first, Built Bar is going all out to make this holiday season the most delicious time of year with a winter wonderland of a deal, featuring new amazing flavors such as the Built Crave Bar, their amazing puffs and ruby chocolate, and lemon dip cheesecake. These and Built's other amazing flavors are available right now. And when you use our special promo code LOCK15, you can save 15% off your first order at builtbar.com. Customize your box any way you want. Save 15% off with the promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED15 at builtbar.com. You probably know that people are screaming for the Giants to clean house. Dave Gettleman, not just Dave, but the coaching staff now. All right. So now if you are John Mara and Steve Tisch, and you are trying to come to a solution on how to fix this team once and for all, do you take the patchwork approach? Do you sweep everybody out? Do you say, okay, you know what? Dave's only had 2 years with Joe Judge. We're going to keep him. Do you say, Dave, we love you, but have a nice retirement? Do you say, Joe, you're in over your head? What do you do at this point?
Okay, well, here's the aggressive approach, right? But I came into the season believing in Joe Judge. I no longer do. My confidence in Joe Judge is not there. Even in their field trip to Arizona here, they said it was great to get away. Like, if you hear the pregame chatter, it was great to get away. We connected. We got refocused. We're coming. And then, if Rudolph doesn't rip off the longest, run after catch in his career, they don't even have 7 points today. So, for me, I'm like, I don't see it in the coaching staff. And they have players, like they have skill position players. Their defensive front, except for, Leonard getting hurt today, was all intact today. So I'm struggling to save the coaches. And I do believe this team is maybe a draft away and a free agency period away of fixing this offensive line. And now they have some other cap issues coming in next year. I get it. But Kevin Abrams is skilled at what he does, and he's well respected with the agents and negotiating contracts and renewing and doing some stuff. So I know Kevin and Ken Sternfeld over there, Mark Kontz, like they're all very respected and they can fix this easily. Having Dave at the helm, I don't think is hurting them at all. I don't think he's made a bunch of bad decisions. I think this roster is laid out really well to win if you fix the offensive line. And that's just the way it has to go. And like I said, you can't pay everybody. It's just not possible. Dave gave a little extra belief into the offensive line than he should have, and he should have attacked it more. But again, if you look at those wide receiver room, it's stacked. Running back room is good. The tight ends, the two that we have, they're good. I don't like Ingram. We all know it. Don't like him. Is he a good player? He's a good player. But I'm not an Ingram fan, right? But our play calling this entire year with Jason Garrett to start, now Freddie Kitchens, is terrible. Mike Glennon is terrible. Running the quarterback is terrible decisions. So if I'm John Mara, I look at decision making all the way up and down the board.
So
if Mr. Mara and Tisch are really gonna have Dave ride off into the sunset, they need to look at the entire room, and that's what's hard. I think that's why they brought Dave back, because guys like Kevin and Sternfeld and Kontz and different people that are in the building, Chris Pettit, they don't want to get rid of them. They believe in those people. They believe in those guys, doing their jobs. But if you take Dave off the head and you go outside the organization and bring somebody else in to run the team, that whole structure is going to crumble, and it's going to be all different people in there.
But would that be a bad thing, though? I mean, come on, because look, 5 straight years of double-digit losses. I mean, what is it? 8 of the last 9 or 7 of the 8, something like that, where they just haven't had a winning season. At what point do you say, look, this ain't working?
You're walking me down a road that I don't want to go, but you're going to make me say it.
I know, but
the problem isn't Dave. It's not Dave. It's handcuffing Dave in ways in which most GMs aren't handcuffed. And again, when you look at the Jason Garrett coming to be offensive coordinator, that wasn't a Dave decision. That wasn't a Joe Judge decision. Okay? That was a decision made outside or above everybody's head. When you brought in Pat Shermer, right? That wasn't necessarily a Dave decision. That was a decision that was, we're hiring the coach. Dave, you're going to work with who we hire. Cool. Dave can work with anybody. So whatever. He'll make any situation great. Cool. Let's do it. But then Shermer goes off board and he brings in the train wreck defensive coordinator here that we had in Arizona for so many years. And that guy, convinces them that they're going to run a 43. Jerry Reese, a year or two before that, spent all this money on the 43 front and all the players and everybody to rebuild that 43. And he comes in and he wants to run a 34. Well, it takes time to transition over to 34 players. They're just not in the same locker room. 43 and 34 players are different locker rooms. And he says, oh, no, I'm going to use a hybrid and this and that. Then he's got DB coaches that have only coached in college. They never coached players in the NFL. So they didn't know what they were doing. There's a lot of decision-making in that building that doesn't trace back to certain people. Like, if you hire me as a general manager, you're hiring me to run everything. As an owner, you hold me accountable for everything in that building. But if you're going to come in and make decisions underneath me or to undermine my authority and then hold me to that decision-making as mine, and then it's my job and my butt on the line, oh, hell no. That ain't going to happen. That ain't going to work. That's probably why I'm not the general manager, because that ain't going to work. Like if Shermer would have told me that was the defensive coordinator he's bringing in, I was a GM. Nope. I know him. He does not run giant type personnel. Find someone else. That's not happening. And he can go sulk as a man and say, oh, I need to get my own step. No, that was your agent telling you who to hire because he got fired out here and nobody else was going to hire him. So your agent made that decision and it cost this organization wins and time and money in our pockets. See, I've been in this game long enough and I've seen all the deals and backroom deals and all the conversations. I've heard them. I know them all. And I'm not one to put them all on blast, but I also know if I'm in that seat and I know my seat's going to get hot at some point because of decisions being made for me, I'm going to be involved in every decision. And I can tell you that GM at the New York Giants, even when Ernie was a GM, was not involved in every decision. That's not the way they do it there.
So that's how they did it with George Young. He was involved in every decision. So you're saying they moved away from that?
They are told and they are discussed with, but it's not the GM's decision. Okay.
Interesting.
And I'm just saying football is a unique business and it's a people business. And when you know the people and you know who's involved and you know how they do things and how they run things, you have to be trusted to be able to make the call. And Dave's a great trooper, love him to death. He's a patient, way more patient than I am. And he loves the New York Giants. He loves the Tishes and he loves the Maris. But when you love something so much, sometimes you fall on the sword for the wrong reasons. And therefore, for me, if you want to blow up the building, blow up the building. But that's going to take everybody out. Men and women who have been there for 20, 30, 40 years, which is why you go work for the New York Giants, because you can have a career there. It's not one of these fly-by-night type teams that changes every 2 years. That's why you're a Giant man. That's why you're a Giant woman. That's why you're a Giant fan, because the Giants are stable. That's who they're supposed to be.
Yeah, but David, they're not stable right now. They've been losing. I mean, that I get what you're saying. I understand it. Believe me, and I appreciate what you're saying. But if I'm a paying customer, and I'm probably, I don't mean to speak for everybody out there. So, folks, if I'm speaking for you out of turn, let me know. I'd be pissed off right now, to be honest with you. I don't want to hear, "Oh, I'm all about stability. I'm going to keep, Dave, you go and retire, but I'm going to keep Kuntz and Pettit and the guys, Abrams and the people underneath you." They've been keeping the same group now. At what point do you say, "Look, we changed over the head coach from Shermer to Judge. We changed over the coaching staff. We changed the quarterback. We changed the coordinators, but we haven't changed the front office." So at what point do you say, maybe it's that's the common denominator here, because we've changed everything else and it's not working. That's what I'm getting at here.
You've changed from Reese to Dave. You've changed from Coughlin to somebody I don't even know. And then you got Shermer, and then you got Judge. But the common denominator might be the person making the decision on the changes,
which would be ownership, and you can't get rid of them.
No.
So what do you do?
But what I'm saying is, if you want to try something that's never been, that you're not doing, lean on the football people before you make your next decision. Lean on the people that love that building and will fall on the sword and say, "Listen, it's not me. Go get this guy or go get that gal. Do this, do that." Listen to the people who love football and love that building. And then they'll walk away, and you know what? They'll be happy to. It's, to me, I don't believe in the coaching staff anymore. So if you ask him, if they hired me to evaluate this building, okay, if they hired Maverick Sports Consulting to come in, which I do with not NFL programs, but other teams, and they say, evaluate why we're not being successful, the evaluation the ownership would not like. Okay. And the evaluations the coaches would not like. Because when we battle time tactics does not mean blaming personnel because my offensive line sucks. No, battle time tactics means I put a 6-man in and I'm going to figure out how to win the game, because my job is to win the game. That's it. Plain and simple. We'll talk about the roster after the season, and in my evaluation of personnel, I will put it in there. You heard when Coughlin left in his press conference, he had nothing about he was frustrated with the personnel decisions, right? So I get it. But again, this roster, if you take this roster right now and you compare it to a lot of rosters around the other 32 teams, the other 31 other teams in this league, this roster has more players on it. This roster has people on it that can win the ball games. This roster is young in a lot of ways that they can build around. This is not a bad roster. I evaluate rosters every week for several shows and do my own show. We talk fluidly about rosters. This is not a roster. And I know a lot of people, "Oh, you're protecting Dave." No, I'm being honest. It's not a roster that's terrible. It's not. Look at Jacksonville. That's a terrible roster. You want to look at a terrible roster? You don't think Jacksonville would love to have the New York Giants roster right now? Jacksonville would love to have. Houston Texans would love to have this roster right now. The Bears would love to have this roster right now. The Detroit Lions would love to have this roster right now. I can go on and probably get 15 to 20 teams in before I start stumbling over teams that wouldn't like to have this roster. This roster is a good roster. So when you talk about changes that need to be made, the people that put the roster together, I can't blame, because they screwed up on O-line. One element of this roster. The rest of this roster is not terrible. And there's a lot of teams, like I said, 31 other teams. I'll get to 10 or 11, 12 of them. Easy. Before I start running out of teams that wouldn't want their roster. And if you got a roster like that, you should be winning more ball games. So if I'm ownership evaluating it, today what I saw was not good coaching. You had Shepard. You didn't give him the ball until the freaking third quarter. You got Golladay. You're not getting him the ball. Shaq only ran the ball 16 times. You were up against a very powerful offense. You didn't keep them off the field. You didn't keep the ball in our offensive hands. That's play calling. That's decision making. That's not putting the 6 offensive linemen in and going heavy and jumbo. That's that. But again, are they going to probably blow it up? Dave will retire. Sure. He'll retire. They'll blow it up. We'll see what happens in 2 years from now. When we're talking about another coaching change, we'll keep talking about the decision making.
Tough times for Giant fans and for us. And I know every week's the same thing. And, you talk about the roster and spoiler alert for those who are still watching at this point. I'm going to go through the offense, the defense, the coaching, the front office, the conditioning staff, and we're going to do a targeted show about whether to tweak, to blow it up, or leave it as is, because I have some thoughts on that. So that's coming up on the shows this week. We're going to start that on Wednesday. We'll do it Wednesday, Friday, and tomorrow, of course, is Twitter Tuesday, and then Thursday I have to do the crossover show. But it's time to start looking at that stuff. This roster isn't horrible, but there are areas that need to be reinforced. And I do agree with you, David, that some of the coaching decisions are just like out there, and that they don't, we talked about Freddie Kitchens not having a plan, just kind of calling plays, like he's picking out names out of a hat. So I agree with you on that. But
look at the New York Jets. They would love to have this roster. Their roster is not, the Giants are better than the Jets roster. Can't tell me that it's not. It's way better. At the
end of the day, they were all going to be home watching the playoffs, it seems.
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm saying, though.
Better
Carolina
worse,
Panthers would love to have the Giants roster right now.
Well,
I keep going.
I should have you do a poll and see. I wish you could take a poll and say, hey, would you like to have the Giants roster? Maybe I'll do a poll here on the Twitter channel. I don't know. But anyway, David, as always, great catching up with you. Great talking about the game, even though the game was another stinker. I do appreciate your input. Giant fans, appreciate you as always. If you're still watching at this point, we appreciate it. Don't forget tomorrow, Twitter Tuesday. And like I said, Wednesday, I'm going to start the roster breakdown. Keep it, dump it, or tweak it. So I'm going to be doing that Wednesday and Friday. Thursday's a crossover show with the Cowboys co-host. I'm not sure if I'm getting Marcus or Landon from that, but busy week ahead as the Giants come home and they have to get ready for Micah Parsons, David's guy, and the Dallas Cowboys. So that ought to be fun. Maybe not, but anyway, appreciate you listening. Thank you so much for making the LockedOn Giants podcast your first listen of the day or your first watch of the day if on YouTube. For David Turner, I'm Patricia Traina. Thank you, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.